everyone, Scott Hansen here from NFL Red Zone. I hope you're checking out 1 hour of 5 Yard Rush, one of the best podcasts on NFL football in the UK.
Hey, what's happening, Rush Nation? We are back with the Week 7 waiver wire. First of all, I have to apologize for last week and the lack of content. It was a difficult week. There was a lot of reasons for why it was difficult. I'm not going to go into them, but what I would say is that, you know, life is going to happen to everybody. And sometimes there's some things that hold a higher priority than this. And what I'll say is that I'm healthy. There's nothing to worry about. My family are healthy. There's nothing that was truly distressing or anything that's going to require any long term. There was just a lot of different bits and pieces in day-to-day life and with extended family and things that just required a bit of extra attention and care. And so those things took priority, as they always will with my family. So I hope you all understand. I don't want to panic anybody either. And, you know, I'm not going to talk about it on the air, but I'm okay and I'm fine. And mentally, physically, everything is good. So, yeah, we are where we are. We're back to a full regular schedule program in this week, and we'll start off with the waiver wire. But I just thought I'd give that a nod and a mention, because it was very, very quiet last week on our side, and I do I don't want to necessarily apologize, because that's life and it happens. But I'm sorry for those that were relying on the content and for the radio silence. That I am definitely sorry for. Let's kick off with the running backs this week, and the big talking point this week is Kiami Vidal. The debate was him or Haskins last week. Haskins is very much the volume player, and everyone kind of expected him to really sort of usurp and take over. But Vidal is always the most sort of explosive back of the two. And sometimes talent prevails quickly, and sometimes it takes time. In this case, it was pretty instant. And that's great news for those that picked up Kiami Vidal. He's still available in 65% of leagues. I imagine the most competitive leagues he's probably gone, but he's worth checking out. I was very big on him last year with the injuries, and he sort of flashed. He had a couple of games where he scored touchdowns, but he looked really, really brilliant with 124 rushing yards from 18 attempts. And he outsnapped Haskins 43-20, and he outtouched him 21-7. So it tells you where we are. And he's got some great matchups coming up against Indianapolis and Minnesota and then Tennessee there. So we've got a little period now where we can really utilize him in a small window. I am still a little wary of Haskins. At the end of the day, he was the one that was kept on the roster, and Vidal was the one on the practice squad. So they didn't value him tons to give him a contract. So there is a suggestion there that he could have been hot-handed and it smashed. I'm weary to put him in the Rico Dowdle bucket for now and react to this one-game sample size, because you have to look at what the GM has done. The GM has basically told you they don't value him enough to give a contract to. They don't value him enough to even sign him, to sign the 53, but they valued him enough to keep him on the practice squad. And he obviously had enough value to believe that was value enough. And in context as well, this was against Miami, who gave up over 200 yards to Rico Dowdle, who isn't even a starter in this league. So there's a lot of context here that kind of has to be painted out. That's not to say you shouldn't add him, but he's not a in at all costs guy. And I think that's the context here that needs to be given. I think if you can get him for in that $10 to $15 range, that feels okay. I think if you're really desperate this week and you need to go up to a quarter of your fab, $25, yeah, okay, I wouldn't pay a penny more. I wouldn't pay a penny more than that, because I think at that point we're starting to get to the point that he isn't going to do what you need, and I think there'll be better options down the road. So that's kind of where I am on Vidal. Not to say he's not the best option out there, but I think it is short term. Let's talk about Bam Knight. I got some messages from people on Sunday because I added him pretty much everywhere, uncontested before most on Sunday, with the news that he was going to take over from Michael Carter. And it was a bit of a shock. This news luckily was leaked before the game. And I look at what Michael Carter did in week 5, and there's part of me that probably should have seen it coming a little bit sooner. I mean, we saw the 18 carries, but he only had 58 yards. And then we saw here that we've got, and then the DeMarcado thing happened where he dropped the touchdown, and we're like, okay, what's going to happen? Bam Knight's the lead back for a while, at least as long as Trey Benson is out. The worry is the volume. I mean, 11 times he carried the ball for 34 yards. That's not particularly brilliant, but he did get in the box. He did get a catch of 20 yards, and he has scored a touchdown in each of his last 2 games. The problem with this was they obviously passed the ball a lot with Jacoby Brissett, and they will run the ball more if Kyler Murray comes back. So that would make Knight a slightly better value. It is against Green Bay, and then there's the bye. And you're kind of playing for that game against Dallas in 3 weeks' time. That will be the game that I think Bam Knight, if Trey Benson is out, will still be the guy to really lead the charge. So I think tough game against Green Bay this week. Then you got the bye, and then you're basically paying up for one cushy game against Dallas that if Trey Benson is out for, and that's not a given, then you're going to get your value. I'm not pushing the boat out too far on Bam Knight. I think you can get Bam Knight. I wouldn't pay more than $6 for him. That's where I'm at. I pay more than 5. I don't think you need to get to double digits for him. I think if you're really desperate, like you haven't got a starter this week, then yeah, you're going to have to pay up to $12 maybe. But I'm not going over that. Like we have to understand the context of he is at best a 1 or 2 week play, and one of those weeks is against Green Bay with a bye in between. We're not future stacking here. We're not looking at the player who's going to take over from Trey Benson. That's not going to happen. So we have to be realistic in what we're getting in Bam Knight. And, Jonathan Gannon might just wake up and change the whole offense again, as he did on Sunday. So we're going to see what happens there, but don't go too far. Other running backs to consider, Kareem Hunt. I mean, I'm not really touching this backfield at all. If you're really desperate, he's available in 60% of leagues. He has got Las Vegas this week, which is a good matchup. Washington, who tend to get beaten up by the rush. I mean, DeAndre Swift just absolutely pummeled him last night, and he has been far from explosive at any point in his career. And then you got Buffalo, which is a tricky matchup. But he's not going to get loads of volume. He is the quintessential sort of end zone inside the 20 guy, and there's a value to that, and it's worth paying up a little bit for, but don't spend more than $5. It's something for you if you need him. I would stay away, but that's where we are. Kendrick Miller is one that keeps getting talked about, and I'm just not there. He's got Chicago, Tampa Bay, and the Rams in his next 3 games. He still can't usurp a crocked Alvin Kamara. That tells me everything. Like, if you can't beat Alvin Kamara out of a job when he is 70%, you can't be that good. You just can't. So he's out there. He's available in 70% of leagues, but I'm not touching him. Again, if I was desperate and I needed someone, sure, spend $2 on him. But you can't get there on him for me. Like, there's just no chance. And then we might as well get into the other names. You might as well get into Tyler Algier. See, that's someone I would have. I would rather have Tyler Algier, who's available in 70% of leagues, than I would Kendra Miller. There's no upside to either of them. But at least I think with Algier is they'll rest Bijan every once in a while and Algier will come on. Kendra Miller can't even beat a 70% Alvin Kamara. Like, this is the time he should be eating and he's not. So those two are interesting. And then you got if you're looking at other people you could sort of target and back up, Tajay Spears. I've talked about him for so many weeks now. He's a guy I'd be keeping an eye on. Blake Corum, Isaiah Davis, Sean Tucker. They're the 4 guys that you can add. Sean Tucker, out of those 4, is going to give you maybe an immediate flex because we saw the touchdown. He's getting more work week to week. I see a pathway to where he could usurp Rachaad White. I'm less confident in that than I was 2 weeks ago. I will be honest. I think Rachaad White's been brilliant. But I think there's a pathway to where that can still happen. So if I had to have any of the 4, that's where I would go. But again, all of them are worthwhile if there's injuries ahead of them and ones to keep an eye out for. Let's look at the wide receivers. This is pretty thin, if I'm honest. At this time of year, it tends to be a little bit better than this. And it's all the usual names. They're all the names we've talked about. Kendrick Bourne, again, had big numbers, second week in a row. No one saw it in the first week. People thought it could happen this week. It has happened this week. He's got Atlanta, Houston, and the Giants. The problem that we have with this is Ricky Pearsall is out, but he's trending upwards. Juwan Jennings was fit, but he wasn't really fit. He was kind of thrown out there because they had nothing else. Brian Ayuk will be up at some point. Again, Kendrick Bourne feels a very, very short-term play. Kendrick Bourne also made a mistake in this game for the interception where he didn't pick up the route, and they came along the Bucs and picked off Mac Jones and gave away the opening score. And that's the kind of stuff that is probably forgiven for players who haven't played much and haven't played long in the system, and that happens. But how many times are you allowed to make those kind of mistakes? Obviously, he rebounded well. He put up big numbers on big catches. If I'm honest, I felt that was very much a scheme thing against the Bucs, that the Bucs are so good at stopping the run. And we saw this with McCaffrey. McCaffrey was held to his lowest rushing total of the year. So you see him being held, and then you're thinking, well, you can't play in the midsection because of the linebacker speed that you've got there in Tampa and the coverage, and you're not winning the line of scrimmage. They lost that. So your only option is to get vertical on the Bucs, and that's what teams are doing this season, and that's what Mac Jones and Kendrick Bourne did. And fair play to them, it definitely worked, and there was a definite plan to do that, and they executed it, and you have to give the credit where it's due, and I'm not saying any of this is negative. What I'm saying is it was very game script specific to that situation, that there was a game plan for the Bucs against the Bucs. Against Atlanta, I don't feel like that game plan works or is a game plan that they will initiate as much. With that comes a high degree of risk. Against the Buccaneers, they felt that risk was factored in and baked into the reward, and it was executed brilliantly. And at the same point, they still lost the game, but they did execute that part of the plan. I'd also say they would benefited from some of the Bucs defenders falling over on that turf, but by the by, is what it is. Against Atlanta, I don't feel that they're going to need to do that. Atlanta are a very low-scoring team. Yes, you've got Bijan, but you would feel that they will probably play a little bit more to their strengths, which is play across the middle, short passes to McCaffrey, short passes to Tunges, and try and just sort of break down, try and get those chunk plays, those 8 to 10 yard chunk plays that Kyle Shanahan absolutely loves. When that happens, I don't think there's as much room for Bourne. I think his target volume will diminish. So I think there's a risk to him. Having said that, he's by far the best option on waivers. He's available in 65% of leagues. Tough next 2 games. And then I think from then we're going to see Pearsall and Kittle and everyone come back. And then I think that'll be the end of him. So don't go crazy. Don't spend more than $5. $5 is all you need. That's all you need to spend. Isaac Iomino, I've been talking about him all season. Calvin Ridley has got a hamstring issue. I mean, Calvin Ridley hasn't been good this season, so I don't think there's much of a change. So someone's got to catch the football. I felt now with, Brian Callahan being fired, you've got a situation now where you've got a new temporary head coach, I would assume. You've got a player who has finished in the top 36 a couple of times this season, and he's going to be the only guy on the team that catches the ball that the quarterback trusts, who's coming off his worst game of the season. I feel like there's going to be something that's lifted with Brian Callahan being fired. They're against the Patriots, who are a good football team. It feels like Ike Omenor is a very good 1 week play here, and he's someone that I'd feel pretty comfortable starting as a flex play. I would like to see more of a target share, and I would like to see more yards. I mean, he's only passed 50 yards once. That is an issue. But I would look at this and say that the Patriots and the Colts in these next couple of games, they are giving up the 5th and the 7th most PPR points to wide receivers, especially those on the perimeter. And that's according to Fantasy Points data. So it is important to look at that and eye that up and see that as a baseline, that there's an opportunity here for him, and it lines up well. Jalen Coker should be back this week. He practiced all last week and then was held out, and I fully think he will play this week. Xavier Leggette's bad. Like, he's just bad. There isn't anyone else catching the football really other than Ted McMillan. I think they need another option. You've got the Jets this week. It's like the perfect game. If you need a 1 week play, Jalen Coker could be it. Again, I think both those guys you can get for like $2. I wouldn't spend more than that. And then Keyshawn Booty had a really good week. And I'm looking at Keyshawn Booty thinking, like, you're just going to have to ride the Keyshawn Booty train, that he's going to have games where he's anonymous and games that he's brilliant. And a lot of that is due to Drake May and how brilliant Drake May has been. And so he is elevating everybody in that team. It's Stephon Diggs' team from a wide receiver standpoint. But Keyshawn Booty is going to have these games where he just pops up in the box score and ticks every box and absolutely smashes it. There's an opportunity against the Tennessee Titans because they're terrible. So there is an opportunity that happens. He's worth a pickup. I'm not spending big bags on him. I think, again, $1, because we know what he is. For every game that he churns out 93 yards and 2 scores, he's going to churn out 3 catches for 21. And that is the risk you're going to have. But with the waiver wire the way it is at the wide receiver position, he represents better value and better opportunity than most. Against Tennessee, I think it's a pretty astute pickup if you're desperate in the wide receiver flexes positions this week. But again, I'm not predicting that he's going to have a huge game. And then you've got the standard names: Christian Kirk, Troy Franklin, Darius Slayton, and Luther Burden. There is one option I'm going to give you that's sort of well out in left field because he's owned by absolutely no one. And it's Jordan Whittington. Or Whittington. Let's get the name right. Jordan Whittington is going to be the Puka Nacua replacement this week. So Puka Nacua is probably out this week. Let's keep that realistic. It might not happen, but here's what I would say. This is all according to Fantasy Points data. In the 2 starts that Whittington had last year when Puka Nacua was out, he had a 24.3% target share. He had a 2.19 yards per route run, and he had over 75 receiving yards per game and a 21% first read share. They are elite wide receiver numbers. I'm talking about elite production from a player who won't get the ball otherwise. So it's a very small sample size. It's 2 games. I get it. But if Puka Nacua is out, Jordan Whittington is going to be a guy, and he's going to be a thing. He's got Jacksonville and then the bye. And I think that, to be honest, is all you're going to get. This is a 1 week play. Again, if you are desperate and you need a play for 1 week, 1 week only, Jordan Whittington is that play. I would have him over anybody else this week, but I've tucked him in last because people want to hear the usual names. He's a 1 week play. But in 1 week plug and play, he is good to go. Quarterbacks, it's pretty thin out there. Like, Sam Darnold is the guy I would get. If you're needing a quarterback this week, he's playing pretty decent level football. He will definitely be a safe pair of hands. Having said that, Houston aren't allowing many points to quarterbacks. They're only allowing 12.2 points per game. So this is not a huge high capacity game, but he does have JSN, who's arguably the best wide receiver in football right now, who's going to plow him to a ton of points. So, there is that consideration, and that's the only reason I would plump for Sam Darnold. You could go with Joe Flacco, but against Pittsburgh, that's a tough situation to be in. But in that second half, he looked pretty good. If you're still struggling past those two names, I would probably say Jackson Dart is probably the guy you want to have in terms of he's only the third quarterback in Super Bowl era history to have 50-plus rushing yards in his first 3 games. So that legitimate rushing floor that he's going to give you should be a fine base to just get you through this week. But the passing numbers are going to be a bit of a wreck. Then we move on to tight ends. Mason Taylor's the guy. The volume is going up. I mean, it was an awful game last week. Truly, truly, truly terrible. We kind of just have to park that as that was just as bad a performance you're ever going to see any team put up. They've got Carolina next, then Cincinnati, and then the bye. These are great matchups for Mason Taylor to target. I'd be dropping $7 or $8 on him and feel pretty comfortable about that. If you don't want to go that way, Harold Fanning Jr. is going to get a ton of work from Dylan Gabriel because Dylan Gabriel won't throw the ball past 10 yards. And if you're looking at the numbers he's getting together, it's a 47.2% route share. And he's getting 0.76 yards per route run, which is great. And he's also getting a 14% target first read share. And this is all by Fantasy Points data yet again. And I look at him and just think, well, the way that Gabriel is just not playing brilliantly or wanting to get deep, that means that Fanning's going to get a good opportunity. And he's got Miami next, which would be a good opportunity, and then New England after that. So those two definitely sort of piqued the interest there. I'm not really interested in anyone else. AJ Barnes put up some good numbers in the last 3 weeks. He has had 3 top 9 finishes, which is impressive. But I'm a bit worried about the schedule. Houston this week's not a great game. Then he's got the bye, and then eventually he's got the Commanders, and that's a pretty decent option. But you're talking week 9. That's a long time to hold a tight end. So I'm not really loving it against Houston. I think there's better options. If you're looking for defenses this week, Cleveland kind of makes sense. 37% owned. They've got Miami if they're available. The Carolina have the Jets. That's a pretty good one to go for. The Chicago Bears have the New Orleans Saints. I feel pretty good about all those options. And if you need kickers, Eddie Pinheiro, he's a good one. He's got Atlanta. He had a heck of a job on Sunday against the Bucs, and he's absolutely smashing it right now. 15 of 15 field goals. He's doing a good job. Mike Badgley has come back in for Spencer Schrader, and again, he is off to a fly. He had 4 for 4 extra points and a field goal, so he's going to be a good option. And Jason Myers still kicking around. He is a great option as well. They're the ones you're looking to target this week. Don't need a fall for anyone else. That will give you all the context you need. But I hope you've enjoyed it. I look forward to talking to you all on Thursday. Please join the Discord, join the conversation, post your questions. I want to take as many questions on Thursday as we can. So please go ahead and just join the Discord, post some questions. We're going to get them all fired up. If you ever want to see your question on the podcast, this is the time. So go ahead and join that. Until then, Rush Nation, thank you very much for your patience. Thank you very much for sticking with us. I hope you're having a great fantasy season. There's lots of great ball left to play. We're seeing some amazing games. We're seeing some not so great games. If you were at London on Sunday, I truly apologize that you paid good money to watch that because that was a tough watch. But we're going to be back on Thursday. We're going to be back game screaming all the games. We're going to be back looking at all the fantasy options for this week, and we're going to help drive to success to get those ships in the harbor. But until then, Rush Nation, don't forget, as always, keep rushing.